Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am bringing to you my September wrap up. So September started off as a really good reading month for me. I think I read 4 out of the 6 books I read within the first couple of weeks. I was just in such a good reading mood, was loving life. I just finished one of my all-time favourite series and everything was going well. And then the 2 last weeks in September I just went into major slump mode. I didn't want to read, I didn't want to film, I wasn't uploaded on YouTube, I just wasn't in the mood at all. So I'm actually quite proud that I even finished any books in those couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling like I'm back in the right sort of headspace, so hopefully the content will continue from here out. So yeah, I did read 6 books in the month of September, which might not seem like that much to some people, but that's quite a good amount to me. A couple of them were shorter, but even though I might not have read that much, I really enjoyed everything that I did read, and to me that's the most important part. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the books that I read in September. So the first book that I finished in September I actually started in August, and that was The Toll, which is the 3rd and final book in the Arc of a Scythe series. And I don't have the book here with me again because my friend is currently borrowing the books from me because I'm forcing everyone to read them. But yeah, I was hesitant going into this book because I'd heard a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people who really enjoyed the first and the second book, Scythe and Thunderhead, really didn't enjoy the third one. The story just didn't really mesh well with them, and I think a lot of people actually ended up DNFing it. They just didn't feel like it was up to the hype of the first 2. I, however, thoroughly enjoyed it. If you don't know, the Arc of a Scythe series is basically about this future world in which you can no longer die from natural causes. You can't really die anyway at all unless you are gleaned by a scythe. So there are these people who are trained to be scythes and they're the only people that can take life. Nature can't take life, other people can't take life, you'll just be sent to a revival centre where you'll be brought back to life. So the only way to die is through a scythe gleaning you. And then basically the story begins when Rowan and Citra become apprentices of a scythe and they start to learn the trade, if you will, and then start to find out the sort of deeper, darker inner workings of the scythedom and how it interacts with the rest of the world. And then a lot of fun and tension and excitement and romance and all sorts ensues. And if you've watched any of my previous vlogs where I read all 3 of the books, you will know how much I adore this series. It is by far one of my favourite series of all time. I do love a dystopian YA novel, I always have, so that is probably a huge part of it. It's just something that I really click with and I really enjoy, but I do think these ones were particularly well written. And the third one I thought was just as good as the first 2. Yes, it is longer, yes there's a lot more going on, there's a lot more characters and different storylines, and I guess people might think it's a bit disjointed, but I for one didn't. I thought that everything was all very carefully crafted to all work in amongst each other. And as with the first 2 books, I just felt the last sort of 100 pages are just go 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 and they're so exciting, and with all 3 books I just read the last 100 pages in one go because I could not put them down, and the third one was no different to that. The one thing that I was worried about with the book is because there were so many different storylines, different characters, I worried that by the end there'd be lots of unanswered questions, a lot of untied ends. But that was not the case at all. By the time we finished, all questions were answered, everything was tied up in a neat little bow, and I just had no issues whatsoever. So it was a 5-star read for me, as were the other 2, and I think this is maybe the first series in which I've given all of the books 5 stars, because usually there's at least one that's just not as good as the rest, and usually it is the last one, to be fair. The second title I read in the month of September was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a short story, so I flew through this within less than an hour, I think. It's really, really short, but I have been wanting to read it ever since I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I just adored that book. I thought it was so beautifully written, so in depth with character development, and it was just, I love that book. So I've been wanting to read more Taylor Jenkins Reid ever since, and when I finished The Toll and I was out and about and didn't have another book on me, I just quickly went on my Kindle app on my phone, and because I've got Amazon Prime I do have the unlimited Kindle reading. I forget the name of it, but whatever it is, I have that. And Evidence of the Affair was on there, so I just quickly downloaded that to my phone and read that, and I loved it. If you don't know, Evidence of the Affair is basically made up of letters from the wife of one couple to the husband of another, and these two sort of correspond with each other because they believe that their other halves are having an affair. And they're basically writing letters to each other to see if they can prove if it's true, and through doing that they learn a lot about each other and they get to know each other and they learn a lot about themselves as well. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was beautifully written. I thought the format was very clever, and it worked really well for the story. I thought it was all very realistic and believable from start to finish, especially with the ending as well, and I would just 100% recommend it to anyone if you're just wanting a short, quick read that's still very intriguing and has good character development in it. Then I would definitely point towards that one. The next book that I read in the month of September was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, and again, if you watch my vlogs, you will know how much I enjoyed this book. I did give it a 5 out of 5 stars, and it has quickly gone to near the top of my list of favourite graphic novels. As I've said before, I actually haven't read that many graphic novels yet. It's just a format that I've gotten into this year, but I do hope to read more, and I don't think this can go too far down, even if I read a lot, because it was just amazing. Basically, this graphic novel is about Prince Sebastian, who is a prince whose family, his parents want to sort of marry him off to a suitable wife and want him to continue the family line in a very royal and traditional way. However, Sebastian himself likes to go out at night dressed in extravagant dresses and incredible fashion, and he becomes a fashion icon of Paris known as Lady Crystalia. And this is Francis, who is his dressmaker and one of only 2 people in the world who know Sebastian's secret. Basically, the conflict in the graphic novel comes when Frances has to choose between keeping this secret for her best friend or finally being able to be recognised for all of the amazing work that she is doing, because obviously no one can know that it's her that's creating these amazing creations because they cannot know that it's Sebastian she's making them for. But this is just the most wholesome graphic novel. It is a really fun tale but with some really important messages in it as well. The ending, if you've read it, oh my god, it's just everything. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but honestly it just warmed my heart so much. I almost cried reading it. It's just beautiful, and the artwork itself as well is just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I was a huge fan of this. I will 100% be rereading this at some point, maybe for a sort of 24-hour reading vlog or something like that. But I think I'll probably reread this a few times in my lifetime, because it's just one of those ones that it's nice and quick, it's nice and easy, and will just cheer you up on a rainy day. The next book that I read in the month of September was The Flat Shearer by Beth O'Leary. This one is basically about Tiffy and Leon, who are flatmates who have never met. So Leon is a night nurse and Tiffy works a 9-to-5 job. So the agreement is when Tiffy's at work, Leon can be in the flat. When Leon's at work, Tiffy can be in the flat, but the two shall never cross paths. And they share the same bed, but they will never be in it together. It's not difficult to realise that they are going to meet at some point and romance is going to ensue, because it's a rom-com. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the writing style. So basically it's written, each chapter is Tiffy then Leon from each one's perspective, and I thought that Beth O'Leary did a really good job of the writing, because you could really tell the 2 different personalities. It was a very different writing style for each, and I thought that was really well done. I thought the romance in this was absolutely adorable, and there were some unbelievably cute moments in here, and again it also did touch on some really important issues as well. Some trigger warnings would be for emotional abuse, domestic abuse, but that is something that I thought was handled really well in the book as well, but it is very prevalent, so if that's something that does trigger you, then I would stay away from this one. But apart from that, obviously it has its very emotional moments, but it is so much fun to read as well. And yeah, if you want to see more of my thoughts on this one, I did read it for a reading vlog, which I will hopefully remember to link up here, because that's something that I always forget to do, but hopefully it'll be above you somewhere so you can go and watch that if you want to. The next book that I read in the month of September was The Poppy War by R.F. Kong, and this one I was I was incredibly excited to go into, but I was almost scared as well because it's had so much hype over booktube, book Twitter, bookstagram, everything recently. Everyone is reading it and everyone is absolutely loving it, so I just went in really wanting to love it, and thankfully I did. If you don't know, this one is about the young girl named Rin who comes from the south of China and amazingly gets into one of the most prestigious military schools there is, which is Sinigard. And when she arrives there, she faces some very difficult times, both because she is from the south, seen as a dark-skinned peasant girl, so she encounters a lot of bullying and a lot of abuse for that, but also because she is so far behind. She taught herself everything that she needed to learn for the exam within a matter of months, whereas everyone at this prestigious school has been learning it pretty much from birth. But while she is there, she learns that she has an aptitude for the art of shamanism and begins to discover her powers in that, whilst it becomes clear that a war is brewing. I'm not going to say much more than that, but this is a grimdark fantasy and it is dark. Again, if you are not good with dark writing, do not go anywhere near this because it is a difficult read. It's an amazing read, but it's a difficult one. There is a plethora of trigger warnings such as self-harm, mutilation, alcoholism, abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Pretty much everything under the sun is in this book, and it is incredibly violent as well, particularly when we do get into the war scenes. But it is an incredible read. So if you are not someone who struggles with any of that, then I would 100% recommend this one. I did end up giving this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it from start to finish. I think it is so incredibly well written. It again touches on lots of important points, especially for Chinese history, which is something that I'm not very familiar with, but I have been learning a bit through this and also through my own research. And it's just the perfect balance of war literature with military strategies and violence and all that, mixed with an absolute epic fantasy as well. And the character building in this is amazing as well. No one really in this book is completely morally correct. They're all in a sort of grey area. They all do things that you're not completely sure about. Even our main character Rin, sometimes I have trouble with some of her decisions, but I like that, and I like seeing a character describe why she is making these decisions, even if you don't particularly agree with it yourself. That makes sense. But yes, I absolutely love this, and I cannot wait to go on to the second one, which is the Dragon Republic. I have it downstairs and I cannot wait to start it. The final book that I read in the month of September was The Switch by Beth O'Leary. After reading the Flat Shearer, I couldn't wait to get my hands on the next one, and I saw that it was on a Kindle daily deal, so it was only £1.99, and I just went for it. It is the first time I've ever spent money on my Kindle to read a book. But I was just really in the mood for it. I was really in the mood for a good rom-com, and that's exactly what it was. The Switch is basically about two women, a young woman named Lena and her grandma Eileen. And basically Lena lives in the city in London, and she spends all of her time working. She's completely worked herself to the bone. She is in a not so great relationship, and then she takes a panic attack in a very important board meeting or a pitch or some sort of business pitch, and basically ruins the deal. So her manager tells her, I'm forcing you to take 2 months off, because basically she has taken no annual leave in the last year somehow. So she's forced to go on 2 months sabbatical? I can't remember what it's called. But she's basically forced to take 2 months off paid. And she doesn't know what she's going to do with herself because she devotes all of her time and effort to her work. Whereas her grandma Eileen lives in the country. Her husband left her not too long ago, and she is quite bored of her life. She wants to get out and meet people. She wants to meet a new romance. She thinks that there is still life in the old girl yet. So basically the two of them discuss it and decide to make a switch. So Eileen moves into Lena's flat in London, and Lena moves into Eileen's cute little cottage in the country, and they basically swap lives for a month or two. And romance ensues on both sides. They both have some hard times, they both have some good times, and it is just It's such a good story. It has some really important issues in it. There's death, there's grief in there, there's anxiety, so if any of those things ever trigger you, then I would be careful. But there's also so much fun in this. There's some really like laugh out loud funny moments. The relationship between the two of them is just beautiful. So yeah, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Towards the middle I did get a little bit bored and I was verging on a 3, but in the last sort of quarter of the book it really picked up and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The ending was just a perfect little finish to it as well. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. So that is it. That is the 6 books that I read in the month of September. I did have a good time. Nothing was less than a 4 stars, and part of me thinks that I am a bit of a lenient rater, but on the other hand, I really enjoyed all these books, so why not? But yeah, I would love to know what you have read in the month of September, if you've read any of these, if you want to read any of them. But as always, if you did enjoy this video, then do please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe for more content, comment down below with any of your thoughts and feelings, and I will see you in my next one.